For a great cup of joe, there's one thing you should know. Your morning brew can also be playful. Buff Boy Brewing guys make the temperature rise. And you surely feel naughty when you swallow our coffee. If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some more, rest assured. Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of.
It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Thank you very much, Larson. Jeremy Bradley here. This is The Scribble. 30 minutes. Actually, sorry. I'm already stopping. Stop. It's 30 plus minutes of time-wasting fun on the show this week. We've got a bit of an extended edition of the show. Now, actually, when I look back at the last 40 episodes, we've done more than 30 minutes, but whatever. So, it was a big week on CBS for two very different reasons. On Wednesday, you had the Survivor 50 finale, which is weird because normally in olden days, that would mean, traditionally, that Survivor has been on the air for 50 years, right? You would generally have one season of a show per year or per cycle, right? The TV season technically starts, September, October, and it ends in May. It ends right now. But when you have a show like Survivor or Bachelor, Bachelorette, they kind of double up if there's popularity, right? If it's a big show. So no, Survivor has not been on the air for 50 years, but they've gone through 50 cycles of the show. So that big finale was Wednesday night on CBS, and I was there with my husband. We had a great time. I don't even know. He's from Brazil. I don't know. He's watched other countries, like other international versions of the show. I don't know that he's seen the American one. He's probably watched it with me. I should have asked him that. We were just... he watched the one with me on Wednesday night. We were there, but I'm trying to think if... No, we've never... I've always watched the show. I've been an entertainment host for 20 years, so that's something that I used to, live tweet and whatever back in the day. He wasn't around. We've been together 9 years. I'm thinking, I don't know that I've watched the show in real time at all in the last 9 years. No, because see, for us, we used to do that also with American Idol because that was such a big show that people were talking about it. I was on my syndicated radio show, and then, everybody was talking about that the next day, right? So though that was a show that I used to live tweet. Bachelor, Bachelorette, obviously too, but no, I've never. Anyway, so let's move on. So that was the big to do. And I gotta say, when the TV networks pump money into something, they throw a really nice party. And then of course, Thursday night was the finale of The Late Show, right? Finale being cancellation, termination, firing, goodbye, good riddance, sayonara. And, that controversy with Stephen Colbert. Just to recap, in case you haven't heard, it was in July, I believe. It was last summer anyway. I think it was July, where Colbert made the joke about CBS paying a big fat bribe to Trump so that, they could get their merger put through. And then, just coincidentally, days later, all of a sudden, CBS says that, we're canceling the show for financial reasons. Now, again, going back to my legacy as an entertainment host, generally networks do not announce the cancellation of a show, one, in the summer like that, and, kind of off. Like right now, April and May, usually beginning of this month, is when the TV networks announce the cancellations. This is when, if you star in a show or you work on a show, this is when you're shitting your pants because you're waiting to hear if your show is going to be renewed. So to do that in July, it was July? They're saying it was July. Okay. So to do that in July is just really weird. I don't know. With the exception of, let's say, like a scandal like Roseanne or whatever, which that wasn't in the... what I'm saying is networks, unless they're firing the star because something really, really bad happened, you don't have TV cancellations in July. So that struck me as odd because why not let the season run and then right about now or April or maybe even January or February, they would have said, by the way, the show's coming to an end. But to cancel it and then give him another basically full season is a little bit strange. And, when you look at the timing of the joke that he made. So, I don't know. I mean, you look at a show like that, the host is paid, $10 to $15 million a year reportedly. I understand that, yeah, the cost of the show is a little bit ridiculous. When you look at, and I've been in the showbiz world for how many years with working with TV networks and covering all of their things. I realize that it takes a lot of people to get a show on the air. I'm not saying that. But here's the thing. They've chipped away at things like getting rid of the band, if there was a band that was playing, right? Colbert still has one, but Seth Meyers, they got rid of the band. They've cut it down from 5 days a week to only taping 4 shows a week. So they have trimmed, they've made cuts. Colbert doesn't need to have however many people are in that band. So there were ways to cut finances. And like I mentioned just at the start of this rant about the $10 to $15 million things, you know what? If it was about money, then they could have approached him and said, hey, look, would you do it for $5 million a year? And let's be honest, if he loved the show and it was he would say absolutely. Because we always hear about how much these shows, the hosts love their staff and they'll take care of them and they're a team, they're a family, whatever. I feel if he was as genuine as, he is when he says that he cares about stuff, he would have said absolutely. If it means keeping the show on the air and the people working, I would take a half pay cut. But like I said, the network didn't even offer that. And I'm sure he would have told us that. If he was offered a pay cut, he would have flat out said, because that's a hero move. That's great PR for him. Hey, look, everybody, I'm taking a half pay. This is what I'm making now. This is what I was making before. That's so that I can keep this show on the air. So he wasn't given that opportunity. So that also screams something, So, I mean, and then we've had, Letterman come out saying, well, it's BS and called them weasels and all these things. And of course, the suspect timing of the whole thing. So whatever. I mean, it's a done deal now. Now there's going to be that comic, the comedians show that's basically they're leasing or they're just giving this guy airtime to go and sell his own commercials. And, CBS is going to make money that way. It's a very strange arrangement, but as they say, from a network perspective, it doesn't cost us anything. We get money from the very beginning of this thing. So whatever. Because the guy's obviously paying for the airtime. So is the late night landscape, collapsing? Is it donezo? Is it over? I mean, I've got to say, I generally do watch the shows. I'll watch the monologue, and then depending on the guest, I'll check out. I'll watch Seth Meyers after the monologue, which his monologue is like 2 minutes some days. But I'll watch then a following segment after that if they do a closer look or whatever it is. And then if I don't care about the guests, then no, I don't watch the show. I'll watch the first 10 minutes of it. I never, and this is, I'm being honest on this one, I never liked Jimmy Kimmel. I never did. But in the last year or so, I'm not one of the people who jumped on the bandwagon after Trump was calling for his firing. No. I was watching even before that. So I'd say maybe about a year and a half. I watched the monologue. I don't watch any of his interviews with people, but I watch the monologue every day. So I do. I've kind of come around to him. And then, like I said, with Colbert, yeah, I'll watch the monologue and then whatever his comedy segment is after that. But then if it's guests I've never heard of or don't care about, then I'm out. And I think a big part of it, too, is late night has just become so political. I mean, so let's talk about Letterman then. I loved it watching it when I was growing up because you had the stupid pet tricks. You had the different gimmicky things where Rupert G in the Hello Deli. Remember, he would always go next door to Rupert, the guy that owned the restaurant. He would have his mom on. Oh, God, what was her name? Was her name Dorothy? Can't remember. Richard Simmons would, make appearances and things like that. It was a fun show to watch. Now, I know that there would be jokes the odd time about politicians. Now, you have to remember, I was a kid growing up in Canada, so I would have known the names of Bill Clinton, so the Monica Lewinsky jokes or whatever it was, but I wouldn't have, I would have understood that. I was a teenager at the time. But the young, like if he was making jokes about, George Bush or whatever, I wouldn't have understood them. So what I'm saying is his jokes were more about world events and things that were happening. He was making fun of celebrities. He was making fun of CBS, really. He was making fun of, just everything. The entire Colbert monologue and Kimmel monologue is just ripping on the president. Now, like I just said, I'm Canadian, so don't go and, oh, you're a Trump supporter. Trump. No. I don't give two shits. I don't even give two shits about Canadian politics, to be honest with you. So it's not about... But at some point, the average viewer who does not follow politics, who does not care about any of that stuff, you're going to lose us. So, yeah, it's one thing to, okay, Kimmel's going to rip into Trump for the next 10 minutes. Okay, fine. Make other jokes about things. We have more celebrities in this world than we have ever had. Make fun of them. Make fun of them. I'm not talking about the YouTubers and influencers. I'm talking about the actual celebrities, people that actually are in Hollywood and show business. Whenever TMZ reports on an influencer death or whatever, a TikTok star, I'm just like, never heard of them. I don't even know. Oh, well, he had 200,000 followers. Oh, sorry, that makes a celebrity nowadays? Well, fuck, I was a celebrity then. I had 300,000 listeners on the radio back in the day. Anyhow, so I just think that the late night landscape has become so political. If you made it more interesting for other people who don't care about politics, and you do... See, I liked Jimmy Fallon on SNL. I've never liked his show. I find him very fake. His reaction, he's always leaning forward and doubling back, or like it's the funniest thing that he's ever heard. And it's just not genuine. So yes, I will give him credit for having those creative, fun segments where he plays games with celebrities and things like that. Fine. I don't know. I just don't like him as a host like that. So. He also doesn't dive into politics as hard as the others do. But yeah, so I think that, it's the changing landscape of, one, how people are consuming television nowadays, or entertainment, how they're consuming programming. And then secondly, they're at the end of the day, this is what it used to be with Johnny Carson and Leno and Letterman. You just want to unwind and laugh. You don't want a rehash of all of the political bullshit that's been stressing you out for the day, or that you've seen on cable news and everybody screaming at each other, or, whatever. Late night is when you're supposed to be, at the time, tucked into bed, kind of the last thing that you're watching, and you end the day with a laugh. And yes, I guess you could laugh at the political jokes, which some of them are funny, sure, but it's just that constant reminder you just can't escape politics. I mean, I had that conversation with Chris Cuomo back when I was still on the radio, where we were going to talk about just news in general. And as two journalists, and he kept taking it back to politics. And there was, at one point, I kind of just said to him, like, but is news all, like, maybe this is where CNN and the networks have lost their way, is that, I used to love CNN because me being the news kid that I was, just a news junkie, I was obsessed with the news. I wanted to see, we're going now to Atlanta where there's a plane about to make an emergency landing. Oh my God, I want to watch and see what happens. Or now we're going to such and such because there's a wildfire. And so we're going to watch. I loved watching that. We're all learning together at the same time what's going to happen. We're watching it play out. That was fascinating to me, and what made me want to be a journalist all those years ago. Now, I don't know that I can turn on CNN and go more than 5 minutes without a political story. Even when there was that San Diego shooting earlier this week, that politics right away. Just give me the facts. I don't want panels of people discussing the news. I want reporters telling me the news. Don't inject your opinion, your heartbreak. No, just the facts. Tell me what's happening. Tell me what you're seeing. Tell me what's on the scene. That is it. Don't now go to experts who are going to sit for the next 2 hours and speculate and say it's this, it could be that. This is what the person's thinking. Just give me the news. Give me the news. I don't need the analysis. I'm tuning in to watch the news. Now, let's get back on track because they're wrapping me up. First of all, let me just tell you, I did not throw to a break like I was supposed to 12 minutes ago. And then secondly, this show was supposed to be playing the one of the clips of Jeff Probst, Survivor host, on the radio with me back in the day. And now I've just hijacked this for, 14 minutes. Just going rants. But it's a big, like I said, big week for CBS with the Survivor finale, and then you just get this whiplash and go, oh, and now they're canceling one of their major franchises from the past 30 years with The Late Show. So we're going to take a break. When we come back, I don't know that am I going to throw it? No, or we're just going to play the clip because we don't have time. So Jeff Probst was on the radio with me several times throughout the year when I was hosting our syndicated radio show for 15 years. And he hosted a daytime talk show back in the day. You probably don't even remember that. That was canceled Well, quicker than Colbert. So he was a surprise guest on the radio. And, can I spill the secrets? The surprise guest thing. Yeah, what does it matter? We're 5 years off the air. I always knew who the surprise guests were, and I played along like I didn't know who was calling in. Because, by the way, I'll tell you, early on when we didn't have a big team like we had, it was me coordinating the segments, and it was me basically saying to the celebrity before we went on the air, okay, so you're going to be a surprise guest, all right? Well, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say this, you're going to interrupt and say this, and then you're going to, and if we need to do it again, but it's going to take like 30 seconds, then we go into the segment. So there you go. I'm pulling back the curtain. I knew who the celebrity guests were every time. So we're going to take a break. When we come back, it is an outdated clip. Like I said, you're going to hear Jeff Probst talking about a talk show that's now off the air 14 years. But we had such a good laugh. Now, also, let me tell you, when we would do these interviews, we had 8 minutes on the radio. We would do a 4-minute segment, more music, and then a 4-minute segment. Generally, we would tape it all in one shot, though. And so sometimes if the celebrity would call in directly, I had them one-on-one on the phone. A lot of times the publicist would call in first, get me on the line, then they would put me on hold, then they would dial the celebrity and then patch us in, and the publicist is sitting there listening the whole time. Jeff called us directly, and so I was given instructions, though, before the call from the publicist saying, you got 8 minutes, this is Jeff Probst, come on now, you get 8 minutes with him, you should feel lucky. Here's the thing, though. If a celebrity was going to keep talking, I was going to let it. These weren't live interviews. Our shows were voice tracked, pre-taped. So if he wanted to go an hour and a half, I'm here for it. If I can get Jeff Probst for an hour and a half, I'm taking every minute that I can. And so we had such a great time where I'm looking at the clock. It's 8 minutes, or 7 minutes is generally when you kind of want to do the wrap up. And I'm looking, and the producers are going. I can see them through the window of the studio. They're like, "Keep going. He's talking. He's having fun. Let's keep going. We don't have a publicist interrupting us. If Jeff says he's got to go, then he's got to go. He's making this longer. So keep going with it." And we did. It was almost 35 minutes that we had Jeff Probst for that segment. And the shitty thing was that, as I said, we would have 8 minutes to do these. We would do it in a block of 4 minutes. We ended up, I think that we kept him for that entire show. Bonnie, somebody will have to correct me, but I think what we ended up doing was we dropped our other segments for that 2-hour program, and we just kept Jeff the entire show. We just kept using clips of that, and we probably still had to make some cuts. But the beauty is, thanks to the internet, you can hear the entire thing 14 years later. So when we come back, finally I'm throwing to break. You'll hear Jeff Probst surprising me on the radio back in 2012 on the Scribble right after this.
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate, at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate, at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
Who are the Kardashians feuding with now? What did that little thug Justin Bieber do this time? Who's getting hitched? And who's headed for Splitsville? Hear the latest celebrity news and gossip every day on Entertainment Wrap-Up. The good, the bad, the ugly, but mostly the ridiculously hilarious. It's all recapped in this daily segment at entertainmentwrapup.com. Have a laugh at the expense of the rich and famous when they take themselves way too seriously. It's 3 minutes of time-wasting fun at entertainmentwrapup.com. Check out Entertainment Wrap-Up at entertainmentwrapup.com. Brought to you by Speak Free Books.
We hear you chirping. Get scribbling. Tweet up the Scribble at The Scribble Show. Join the discussion with Jeremy Bradley. It's all going down right now on Twitter at The Scribble Show and at thescribbleshow.com.
All right, talking about reality shows still, let's go to the phones. Hi, you're on the air.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Tribe has spoken.
Oh, great. Great, another crazed Survivor fan. Who is this?
Jeremy, this is Jeff Probst.
Oh.
Not a crazed fan. I am your worst nightmare. Tribe really has spoken.
It's the crazed Survivor host, ladies and gentlemen, and well, thanks for giving us a call, Jeff. Here's the thing: you're taking over primetime with Survivor, then daytime with your talk show, and now what? You're trying to move into radio? Then nicely done.
We definitely haven't taken over daytime. We're struggling to hang in there, but it's been a fun experiment so far.
Well, let's talk about that, because, there's got to be a lot of pressure. You're going up against Ricky. She had a show for a decade, and then Katie Couric, a legendary, newswoman. And then you sort of retooled your show when you were launching, right?
Well, we'll probably continue to retool it until we find something that really satisfies both us and the audience. So I know it may sound disingenuous, but I didn't feel any pressure. We're just trying a new show, and I'm working hard on it, and I definitely want it to succeed because I have a lot invested, and my ego's in there and people's livelihood. But it's not the pressure of Katie or Ricky or Steve Harvey. It's just our own pressure to try to figure out, is there a show that we can do that we like that can find enough of an audience to make it financially viable? Because daytime is such a small audience right now.
Mm-hmm. And so, I guess every time somebody's launching a show, they're wanting to do something different that hasn't been done before. When you guys started planning it, and even now, as you're saying, you're still retooling as you go, how do you... Here's the thing. There's that female audience, and then, back in the day, it was Donahue, obviously, legendary. Is it harder for a guy to make it in daytime? Obviously, Anderson just got canceled as well.
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know if it really is about that as much as the truth about the industry right now, which is with people DVRing and people leaving the way they've been watching television for so many years, it's a transition. And with the transition is coming confusion. And I'm not an expert. I'm just, on the outside. But it appears that we're right in the midst of a major transition of how is this going to work, where people don't really watch TV at 8 o'clock at night when Survivor's on. They watch Survivor after the kids go to bed, or the kids get to watch it after they finish their homework. But my point being, you don't have to watch it at 8. You can watch it Saturday morning if that's your reward. So that's what's happening, I think, in daytime, is that for a long time it was very profitable, and now it's very streamlined. And I think Anderson's proven he's a very good host. It's not that he's not a good host. It's just there's only so many eyeballs out there, and who's going to get them? And what Oprah did, I feel fairly confident saying will never happen again.
Mm-hmm. But let's admit, come on, you're happy that Anderson got canceled. Let's be honest. Let me just really.
Actually, I know Anderson only because when we would pass each other when I would be in New York or filling in for Larry King. We might talk on the CNN connection, but I don't have his phone number, and I wanted to call him because I really want to just say, okay, dude, truthfully, tell me, are we having the same experience here? Because it's a far cry from Survivor, where we launched that show in the summer. It was paid for through sponsor, through Mark went out and sold the show beforehand. And so the network left us alone. And when the show launched and it was a hit, they continued to leave us alone. And to their credit, CBS has been the best partner because we've all sort of just let the show evolve and nobody stepped up and said, let's change it. But when you're launching a new show, typically there are a lot of opinions. And that's the truth about daytime, is you just have a lot of people with opinions, and the more opinions you get, on one side you have all this knowledge coming in, on the other you start to lose your voice, and you end up, you can end up lost trying to figure out who the hell you are. And I'm trying to make sure that doesn't happen to me, that regardless whether the show works or not, and whether we're renewed or canceled or on forever, then I'm doing a show that I'm into.
And typically, though, as I said, daytime is a female audience. And do you have to? And I'm going to say it, Jeff. Are you getting in touch with your feminine side for this show?
Well, I've always been in touch with it. All jokes aside, it's one of the things that I'm kind of known for in my circle of friends is I'm very emotionally aware, and I live in that world. That's what turns me on more than football is what are you doing with your life and what do you want from your life? And so that part's not a big deal. I don't have any issue sharing. My wife's on the show. I put a camera in her office. That's really not it. I feel like the MacGuffin is what is your show about? It's really you just gotta tap into something that people want to watch. But the trick is you have to do something that you also enjoy doing. Otherwise, it won't work. Mm-hmm. You can't. It's like the creator of Everybody Loves Raymond said, do the show you want to do because it's going to get canceled anyway. Mm-hmm. You know, sooner or later it will get canceled, either 1 week in or a year in or a decade later. So do what you want to do, and that's the trick. It's hard because you have a financial responsibility. CBS gave me money to make a talk show. I have a financial responsibility to that bank called CBS to deliver a profit, and if I don't, they should fire me and cancel me. That's how it goes.
Well, I mean, let's hope that's a long time down the road. So in terms of content on the show, I mean, you've had the guys on the couch. You've got your ambush adventures. Interesting thing about the guys on the couch. Have you ever had a question let's use the word naughty that it didn't make it to air?
Yes.
Okay, what was it? We can talk about it here.
God, I'd have to think, but you can't say penis. You can say it maybe once.
Right.
But you can't do anything, from what I understand, you can't do anything that conjures up an image. And that's pretty hard for me to do. I'm a colorful speaker, and I like images, and I'm baffled by the fact that Taken 2, the movie, had something like 57 murders in it. A mother was cut, her throat was cut, she had a hood over her head, she was hung upside down to let the blood drip out while her husband, Liam Neeson, is chained to a wall watching, and their daughter is being chased by the other bad guys, gets a PG-13 rating. But you can't talk about anything regarding sex on television. It is so ass backwards that I don't even know what to do with it. I don't know if I should just stop and become somebody that fights for the freedom of speech, and I don't know. It's just nuts to me. We did a show on transgender youth that has not aired. One of the shows I'm most proud of because we're tackling a topic that hopefully in 10 or 20 years people will look back and go, they used to do talk shows about that? Oh, it seems so silly. It's such a normal thing. But right now it's not. It's a big deal. And we had a teenager who transitioned from a girl to a boy and was inspired by watching Oprah 5 years ago, in which a girl transitioned to a boy and told his story on Oprah. Well, we had the kid who told his story on Oprah, and then we had the boy who transitioned. We're talking about sexual reassignment. We're talking about kids coming out of the body and saying, Mom, Dad, something's wrong, and I don't know what it is, but I'm a boy. But when it came time to talk about the actual sexual reassignment surgery that adults go through, we could use an onion to represent the vagina, but we couldn't use a similar vegetable like a cucumber or a banana to represent the penis because that was too sexual. We could, however, use an empty roll of toilet paper. So let your mind go there. You can use the smelliest vegetable to represent a vagina, and you can use the thing that you use when you go to the bathroom to represent a penis. But you can't use a cucumber because that would be too sexual. I mean, none of it makes sense.
Now, do you think, because back in the day, All in the Family wasn't necessarily censored. I mean, there was a bit of a warning, I guess, for a little while on the show. And now, when it re-airs, in syndication or whatever, I mean, it's kind of funny to see, like, we've sort of taken a step backward as society in terms of our tolerance for things.
Yeah, it seems like it. I really don't. I'm not an expert on it, and I'm getting educated on it. And I'm not mad at anybody. I'm just baffled. I'm baffled that we teach kids sexual education, but don't anything on the air in the afternoon because they might see it. Mm-hmm. You're kidding.
So
really? Even the word naughty. You started this by saying anything a little naughty.
Right.
I was told when one of my early meetings, ooh, naughty is a tough word to use because it implies sex.
Right.
And I said, take the over-under on when I use naughty within the first week. I mean, that's just nuts that you can't say naughty.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, okay, obviously a wide variety of topics covered on your show, and you've had a lot of people on. Do you have a dream guest, and what would you ask them?
I don't have a person in particular. It's interesting that what I would ask them is anything I'm interested in about them, because from Survivor, I've really learned that the questions that are on my mind are on other people's minds, because that's probably the most common comment that I get is you ask the questions I wanted to ask. I'm no genius. I'm just listening, going, what do you mean you're not helping with the fire? That sounds like a risky move on a show called Survivor. Are you certain you're safe, or are you just out of touch? It's just asking those questions. And my mentor is Howard Stern, who will ask anything, and people who aren't fans can't understand how you could be a fan, and people who are fans say to those who aren't, you need to listen again, because he had Lady Gaga on last year, and it was one of the greatest interviews I've ever heard of anybody at any time. I learned so much. And then she did a performance of Standing on the Edge of Glory, and she talked about it was when she was with her granddad and he was dying, and it was one of the most moving things. So I don't care who's on the show. I ask the questions I'd want to know. I'm not really interested in what character you play on TV. I don't care. Mm-hmm. I care about, do you remember that moment? Do you remember where you were standing when you got that phone call? Were you scared, or were you not? Or do you think you're more entitled now? Have you changed? Do you expect things? Did we treat you okay? Do you get annoyed? What's it like to be a good-looking guy in Hollywood in your 30s and single? How often all those things that anybody wants to know. Mm-hmm. About the only question I don't ask, because I've just been told so many times it's rude, is I avoid the money question, even though I think it's a fair question. I respect the fact that enough people have said it's rude that I just won't ask it. But otherwise, yeah, I love interviewing, but we can't get the kind of guests, we can't get a Lady Gaga. We can't. We're a new show with low ratings. So we get my friends. Yeah. No, that's who we get.
Well, and you know what? If you've got a few more minutes, we've got some Survivor questions that I'm sure everybody's dying to hear. So we've got to get back to the music. We're going to have more with Jeff Probst right after this. Okay, cool. And then if you've got another 5 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Okay,
do it.
Cool. Let's do it. Talk show host, Survivor host, the man who does it all. If you tuned in earlier, he voted me off my own show. Jeff Probst is still on the line. All right,
But you know what? You're redeeming yourself.
Okay, good.
And this is Redemption Island season, so you actually could win yourself back in this hosting role.
That's so. There's an idol somewhere in my office, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay,
exactly.
I'll be looking for it. Now, Jeff, we were talking in the last segment about the new daytime talk show, and we've got, of course, questions about Survivor. I'm sure you're asked them all the time.
Yeah.
So if you have a few seconds for some of those.
Go for it.
All right. Now, I'll admit, I thought that Lisa, and I know she was just on your show, right? I thought that she would be gone first episode, maybe second. Has she surprised you?
Yeah. But I have to say, I did not anticipate her being gone early, but like you, I thought it was possible. And in the beginning, when she and I were first talking, I said, if you last, you're going to be an inspiration, because your struggle is a common one. You're a mom, you're Christian, you're struggling in your life. We knew at that point that she was going through some marriage difficulties, and this is not an uncommon story, but what is uncommon is you've chosen to play this devilish game, Survivor, in which the motto is outwit. That's part of it. That means use your wits, and that might mean lying. And true to form, she's lasted long enough that women are now going, wow, look at this woman. She's being so vulnerable. And this mom who and she still struggles with it. So I'm so glad she's lasted.
Okay, so you've done the show for so many seasons, and I know you probably watch people's, audition videos and you read over the notes about them. So you must be a pretty good judge of character now when it comes to contestants. So is there a personality trait or physical ability? Like, what should people know about being on the show? Like, what makes a good contestant on Survivor?
I think it's a few things. Self-awareness is right up there. If you aren't aware of how you're perceived, it's going to be difficult, because perception is reality. And especially when the only reality is the other 15 people that you're playing with, then the only thing that matters is how they perceive you. Nobody knows your grandmother and that you go visit her every Sunday, or that you're really nice at church. No one cares. They just want to see how you're perceived. So if you don't realize that people don't trust you, you're dead. And if you don't realize that people see you as lazy and you need to pick it up, you're dead. So I think self-awareness is a big one. And I think for some people, patience, meaning count to 10. It feels so good right now to say kiss my ass, but don't. Say count to 10. Walk around the palm tree and come back, and hopefully somebody else has said it for you. And now they're in the hot spot. Because a lot of Survivor is staying out of the way of the bullets and letting your ego go to bed. Just give it a rest. You're brilliant. Nobody else needs to know right now. So just be aware of how you're coming across. Let other people make the big decisions. Let them know you're with them. But be looking for that moment. And when you see that moment, you have to go for it.
Now, I have to ask you, though, because people come in with this big game plan where they're going to have a fictitious story about themselves, and then they open up, they hit it off with somebody within the first 5 minutes, and all of a sudden spill the beans and, create an alliance. Is that a stupid thing to do? Because you still don't really know people at that point. Like, how...
I don't think you can judge it, because everyone does it. So, in the beginning, I used to look at people and say the same thing you did. You'd say, why are you doing that? Haven't you learned from the earlier seasons? But at a certain point, I realized if people continue to do it year after year, then it's proof to me that it's in our nature. And I think when it comes to confiding in somebody, it probably comes from such a strong desire to trust. You're looking for someone you can rely on. And if you think you find it, you want to give them a token. You want to give them something to say, I'm going to tell you something. You want that bond. And if the reveal is something about how magnificent you are, that's your ego. Like whenever we have rich guys or doctors, they always say, well, I'm not going to tell anybody. And I always say, you won't be able to help yourself. You're so enamored with yourself that you won't be able to not tell them you're a plastic surgeon. That's your identity. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, day 2, I wasn't going to tell you guys this, but I'm a plastic surgeon, board certified, #1 in New York State, worth $50 million. I just want to let everybody... Well, why? No one cared until now. And now you're done.
Yeah.
So that's that whole ego thing. Shut up. Malcolm's playing a great game of not giving anything up. And people are giving him information. But he's not giving up information. He's smart enough. He's a really smart dude. But what I love about him is he bites his tongue. He doesn't tell you stuff. He could tell you, but he lets you tell him whatever you want.
After 20-some seasons, dumbest move ever?
There have been a few.
Yeah. Who was it that got voted out with 2 idols?
James.
Yeah. Does that rank up there then?
No, I don't think that was really one of the dumbest moves. We gave him a hard time, but he played the odds, and he thought, I'm safe, and if I survive this, I'll be safe down to, I think, like final 5. He played the odds. It's so easy to backseat drive. But giving up your idol when you have it and giving it to somebody else when there's only a few people left in the game, which quite a few people have surprisingly done, is always a risky move. But again, excuse me, going back to what I said a minute ago, if you're there for 5th place, that's where you'll end up. And 5th place doesn't pay much. Mm-hmm. 1st place, however, pays $1 million. And even after taxes, it's still many, many hundreds of thousands of dollars. So if you're playing to win, you idiot. But they weren't there. You know, it made sense at the time. So I don't know. I think most of the dumb moves just come from either you're just dumb. I mean, when people say, "Oh, but this challenge favors tall people," or Kurhoff, our challenge guy, will always say, "Yeah, and puzzles favor smart people or work against dumb people." I mean, everybody's got their qualities. So I think giving up idols are probably the dumbest move. But man, when you're not eating, you're really not eating. Mm-hmm. Just lose your mind. You can't concentrate anymore. You don't know what you're doing or saying.
Well, let's talk about then when they're not eating, what are you doing? Because I know, like, your counterpart, Phil Kogan from The Amazing Race, we love having him on the show, and he said that people always think that he's just flying from place to place. So what are you doing then while the tribes are living on the island? Like, what's your regular day then when you're not with them?
Yeah, it depends. We're rehearsing or blocking or testing other elements of the show, whether it's challenges or figuring out how we're going to do a switch or where we're going to do the merge. Because I'm the executive producer as well, or one of them, and the daily showrunner. So most of our day is spent prepping for what's going to come later, and then a small portion of my day is spent doing on-camera stuff. And now on the beach where the survivors live, our producers are out there with them all day. That's the main job during the day is a couple of teams, camera teams, and our producers are out there just observing and taking notes. That's all they do all day is they observe and take notes, and they're directing their cameras where they think the best story is or who to follow, but they're really just following what's happening. And so, our schedule is non-existent. You're on 24/7, even though you may have a call sheet that says, okay, we're going to rehearse this challenge at this point, we're going to have a team meeting at this point. Somebody could, need medical attention at 4 a.m. And so the radio is always on. It's always by your bed. There's always a cell phone of some sort, even though it's a local, it's coming off our own satellite, so it doesn't always work. But there's always communication because it happens. It'll happen many times a year where there's somebody that might need to be evacuated or there might be a problem at camp. And so you're out there for 39 days living, breathing survivor. And if you have an afternoon off and you're in a place where you can scuba dive, go scuba dive. Mm. But you still have the radio with you. And it's that way for our whole crew. Get your job done, and when your job's done, knock yourself out. Do whatever you want. Read, surf, sit on the beach, and then be back at work. And it's why that world is so appealing, because there's no clocking in or clocking out. And as a result of that autonomy, everybody does their job to the highest degree, and they also party to the highest degree. They do surf, and they love to surf, or they will do photography, or they will scuba dive. But, boy, the next morning they're back in the art department cranking out some beautiful piece of art.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask, too, then. I mean, because you have some amazing, whether it's a set or the different challenges and obstacle courses, how do you guys get everything over to where you're going if you're in such remote places? Yeah,
it's a big deal. You got to ship the timber in from the nearest, port. Like, I think we got everything from Manila in the Philippines. And that's a big deal. Getting our food is a big deal. It comes in on big crates, or we'll get big shipments, and it'll be a huge, what do they call it? Not a trailer. It'll be a huge container that will come with food for weeks. And so it is a bit like living on a military base. So when you eat food, it's in a big mess hall, and they're in these big platters, and one person goes in after another, and you just follow in line, and you grab the big ladle, and you stick it in, and you grab some spaghetti. Or it's not like on a movie where you go up to a little craft services truck and say, hey, I'd love an omelet with a little tomato and oregano, and then can I get a protein shake with a boost and some French toast? No, today we're serving pancakes and cereal, and there's some eggs if they're still there.
So you're confirming that no 5-star accommodations when you're on location?
No, we have never had a 5-star accommodation, ever. The nicest we had was in Nicaragua, and I will say that was pretty sweet. I had a cool house overlooking the bay, and most of our crew was in a really cool hotel. Not 5-star, but for Survivor, incredible. But we've been intense these little modular homes that are, the size of a small studio apartment and you're sharing, so there's not privacy, and there's somebody right next to you. And we've been intense lots of times. Early on, we were intense quite a bit. Even when Mark was out there. I mean, Mark's tent was right next to mine, and mine was next to the newest PA. There was no hierarchy. You could hear everybody fart and get up in the middle of the night to whatever. And it's changed a little bit after 25 seasons, but not a ton. You'd be surprised how rugged it can still get.
And now we also see a lot of wildlife. I don't know if it's B-roll or if you guys are actually shooting it when you're out there, but there's that element of wildlife. So how does everybody stay safe, right? We see these night vision video of, rats running around or whatever. I mean, how do you ensure everybody's safety?
There's two sides to it. The rats and monkeys and things like that, they're on their own, and they do come into camp, and they will, if you leave food out, they will eat it and destroy your camp, because you're in their world. You have no idea where they are. They're just sitting there watching. But the snakes and things like that, I mean, for the most part, those animals leave when you're around. But we do have a wildlife expert guy. Carl is usually out there, and he goes to the camps, and he goes to the challenge locations. And like if we're rehearsing a challenge, he will be there 2 hours before we get there, walking through. In the Philippines, he'd be walking through the rice fields looking for snakes, and he finds them. It's amazing how many times he finds a snake. You think, there aren't any out there, and he'll say, there are lots out there. I found these 3, and he'll have them in some sort of container, and he takes them somewhere else and releases them. He loves his job. He can't believe that he gets paid to be out in the wild with these animals that he loves, and he cares for them so much. But then once a season, some crew member will defy the rule that says you have to wear closed-toed shoes, and they'll be in flip-flops, and they'll get bitten, and then we'll wrap them from foot to waist and put them in the chopper and send them to Manila to see if it's poisonous, and and hope that it isn't. So it's a real deal. We're just very conscious of it, and we don't want any problems, so we take very few risks. And we always have an evacuation plan. We have an evacuation plan for anything that would happen involving a typhoon or a tsunami. We have an evacuation plan for volcanoes if that's the need, and we always have an evacuation plan for an individual who's injured with our chopper team and our medical team. And it's pretty good. If you're going to get hurt, you're in good hands, because you'll be on a chopper in less than a half an hour, no matter where you are, and you'll be flown directly to the nearest hospital where they are waiting on us. We have a deal with them, and you drop and go, and you're in good care.
Let's talk about, though, like when contestants are hunting. I mean, are there different rules in different countries about what you can hunt and what you can't? Like, how do they know what they should eat and that's not going to poison them? Are they briefed on that before they get out there?
Yeah, we do. Before the show, we put them through a little survivor training school, which is usually a half a day to a day. And basically, we give them this little booklet we put together, and it says, these are berries that are okay to eat, and these are berries that are not. And these are trees that if you rub up against them, they'll make your skin burn. And these are trees that, make good fire starter. What's amazing to me is when I check in with the producers, how the majority of people don't even look at them. They're like, yeah, I got it. I know brown nuts are good and the red nuts are bad. I got it. Thanks, man. And then they get out there and, somebody eats a nut and they're sick for 2 days. And you go, God, guys, I know you're Americans and you think you know everything, but that's why we gave you that book.
Yeah.
We don't want you to get, sick. I mean, we do, kind of, but not by eating a bad berry.
And this season you've got some of the guys from the past. Scariest moment ever that you've had on this show?
Oh, that's easy. The scariest moment for me was we had a guy, he was on this season, Russell, a black guy with dreadlocks, and he was on a few years ago, and he got really dehydrated, truly dehydrated, like what is medically called dehydration, where his body started to shut down, and he passed out, and we brought him to, and we hadn't pulled him from the game yet because we thought he might be able to come back. And he was sitting there, and he was having a very hard time telling us where he was, how many numbers we were, what his birthday, those kind of things. But he was still, we don't pull anyone until it's absolutely necessary. And then, so we set him back up, and we're going to take his blood pressure, and his eyes rolled in the back of his head, and he was done. And they had a heart monitor on him, and it dropped from I can't remember now, but I think it was 80 beats to 60 beats. It was an extraordinary drop, fast. And the doctor looked at me as if to say, he's done, and I looked back as if to say, yep, I'm right there with you. And they gave him a shot of something and brought him back. But in those 2 or 3 seconds, a lot went through my head, including, okay, how are we going to deal with our first death on Survivor?
Definitely not during sweeps. Well, maybe yeah. Always thinking about ratings, right?
Yeah.
Let's very quickly, because we do need to get going. But when we talk about Survivor, and the locations always seem to be a tropical destination. A lot of people wonder, why is it never in a cold, snowy, wintry place?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. There is that idea of people with very little clothing, not because of the sexy part of it, just because of the vulnerability. When you see a guy that all he has on is a pair of shorts or underwear, and he's trying to build a shelter in the pouring rain, there's something very, it brings it down to a base level of look at that, man, they have nothing. So there is that. The other side of the coin is the cold weather is hard for us to shoot in. Some of the gear, would have a hard time, and humans tend to congregate, so they're probably going to be, in an igloo, just sitting in there trying to keep warm, and it doesn't lend itself to great moments, because one of the things that Survivor counts on is that somebody's going to climb a tree, and somebody's going to fish with a Hawaiian sling, while somebody else is going to be lounging in the sun. So that weather also helps foster the story.
Mm-hmm. And one final thing, best Survivor moment ever in your mind?
Man, almost impossible, really, to answer, because there's just been so many. I mean, there have been so many great moments. I have favorite moments every season, and if you have to pick one favorite moment, I would pick the very first season, and it wouldn't be when Richard Hatch won. It would be 2 days before, when there was a final challenge and there was 3 people left, and it was this woman, Kelly, and Richard Hatch, who won, and this guy, Rudy, who was a 72-year-old Navy SEAL. And it was the last challenge, and it was our first season, and we're in the middle of the sun, and it was beating down, and they had mud on their face. They had just walked over fire, I think, and all Rudy had to do was hang on to this idol longer than anyone else, and he would win. Everybody loved Rudy. And we all knew he was going to win. It was done. Our first season was done. It was in the bag because he's a Navy SEAL. Who's going to outlast a Navy SEAL? Nobody. Right. And in one little moment, while I'm talking to Rudy, he scratches his head like he can't remember the answer to a question, and it was over. And in that moment, I thought, oh, my God, our show's going to tank. we just lost our star. And then, Richard Hatch wins and becomes one of the single most notorious reality show contestants of all time, and turned out to be fantastic because he was a villain. And it was great. We never even considered how good that could be for the show. And it turned out to be fantastic. And Rudy's a great guy, and we still love Rudy, but Richard was clearly a winner that we never saw coming.
Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, that must be a huge deal for you to be involved in, the longest run. Is it the longest running reality show ever?
I think, yeah. I mean, we were the first, unless you include, with respect, things like Real World, and
right.
or Cops, probably.
Right.
Yes, in terms of competition reality, if you get rid of the arguments, yes, we were the first, and sort of set the way for many of the, for all the shows that came. And yeah, I was in the right place at the right time. I mean, luck is such a big part of everything, and I just got lucky. I got lucky that I was smart enough to say no to a lot of jobs that came before Survivor that just weren't tickling my fancy, and I just waited. And then I was really lucky that I connected with Mark and that he saw something in me and said, I'm going to give you the job. I mean, he could have given it to a lot of people. It'd probably still be on the air, and who knows what I'd be doing, but he gave it to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, you'd be doing daytime talk, right? That's what we're talking about today. All right.
Who knows?
Well, fingers crossed, though, for, a long run on the Jeff Probst Show. So that's every weekday. It's syndicated, right? So check your local listings.
Yeah, local listings, yeah. Always doing something different and fun, and thanks for having me on.
No problem. And then Survivor Wednesdays, 8, 7 Central on CBS. Jeff, thanks for voting me off my own show. Great chatting with you today.
Yeah, good chatting with you.
Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter at The Scribble Show. The Scribble is a speak-free media presentation.